You know that expression, writing for trade? It's become something that is somewhat polarized. When somebody said they're writing for trade, very few people are like, yeah, I love that. It's generally an insult. Some people do like that type of storytelling. They like trades, but that term itself, writing for trades, it's a negative. But I'm going to poke on it a little bit because are we writing for trades anymore? People talk about decompression as writing for trades, but trades, five, six issues in a trade when you're like rounding the corner on issue 14 and still messing around with kind of setup, you're no longer writing for trade. You're writing for some completely other thing. Hey everybody, this is Perch. I've been reading older comics. I'm always reading older comics for that matter, but one of the things that's become more and more clear is how much was accomplished in, say, three issues. It was actually pretty common, especially in the 70s, 80s, a little bit the 90s, where you'd have these storylines go on. It's like the start of a three-issue epic. That's what it would say on the cover, a three-part epic. Sometimes you'd get like four. Occasionally, like it'd be a big event, you'd get six. Like the Infinity Gauntlet was six issues. And it is today the idea of having like a two-part or three-part or four-part story just seems kind of quaint. It's like nothing is under six issues. Like why would you even consider doing something under six issues? When Brian Michael Bendis took over and then relaunched the Avengers, everything was in these six-issue arcs, and usually a little longer than that. Events today, like you can't have them in six issues. I mean, for one thing, they typically run longer, but look at things. I guess Civil War, what, seven issues, right? It's just we're not on the same playing field anymore in terms of how many comics go into a run, a story, and But what people often dismiss this as decompression, writing for trade, and I'm just this isn't trades. Trade, it's much longer than trades. I'm not sure what people are writing for. Many of the, I mean, for example, the current Legion of Superheroes, and I don't mean to bag on Bendis all the time, but we've had several issues now of this run, and with all the changes at DC, I think there's a very legitimate chance that that comic gets canceled. That it wraps up kind of its first volume, however they want to market or label it. But like nothing has happened, or like close to nothing has happened. You've had the two lead-in issues, and then you've got this this current thing going on, but it feels like all setup. I mean, I keep wondering like when's the comic going to happen? It's a lot of talking, some parliamentary votes, some people are after the Legion, but then they're introducing some other people, and there's but people are moving around. It's just it's questionable if there's a comic. And by the way, I mentioned this to somebody like, this is a comic. This is not a comic for you. This is a comic where the main thrust of the story is going to be around kind of interpersonal relationships and that kind of dynamic. It's not going to be a bunch of capes flying off and battling a villain. That's not the kind of comic this is. And okay, fair point. But the comic itself is not even like take a look at Scott Pilgrim. Scott Pilgrim had a start, a middle, and an end. It had acts to it. Most comics, including ones that are slice of life type I mean, hell, even romantic comedies have a first, second, and third act. It tends to have a momentum to the story. But a lot of comics are still in the first act as we're rounding like issue number 20. That is, if it hasn't been relaunched. And you're looking at going, what is this? Is decompression taken to a new level? Now, by the way, I don't mean to be, you can throw plenty of alternate examples. You know what X-Men is doing with the done in one issues and like the kind of one, two, or three little issue kind of arcs. There's definitely examples of this. Kelly Thompson over in Captain Marvel is not doing, she's doing all kinds of different, there's a couple issues and then six issues and then less. I mean, she's doing all kinds of things. So this is not the same with everything, but it is this idea of writing for trade. I think feels a little antiquated, but antiquated in the wrong direction. It's that comic publishers now are putting more in they're basically stretching this thing out well beyond 6 issues into kind of infinite issues until it gets canceled. And that's the crazy thing about all this is that it's not that it's not like they're saying we have a really good plan. We have a Chris Claremont like plan for 100+ issues. It's not like that. Although I've heard that discussed that it's like modern comics that don't prescribe to the kind of 2 to 3 issue storylines. Well, they're doing something different. They're doing Claremont like storytelling. But this isn't Claremont. Claremont still had stories within the story. Yeah, you may have a grand master plan, but these comics don't read that way. It doesn't read like they were getting a big long arc where a subplot introduced in the first issue is going to feed into the 50th issue or whatever it happens to be. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like basically a plan to just kind of stretch this out indefinitely with no clear direction of what a first, second, third, fourth part of the story even looks like. And that's how they read. So what is this? Is this writing for trade? Again, trade paperbacks, last I checked, was 5, 6 issues you could put in a volume. This is something completely different because in a weird way, these comics don't fit in a trade paperback either. You pick it up and it's like, is it volume 1? Is it volume 4? But what's going on? The heroes are kind of just milling about. I mean, it's there's not even really a focused storyline going on. And so I'm just kind of curious, who is this comic written for? What is the plan exactly? It often feels like killing time, and I'm haunted a little bit by a comment. I don't recall whether this is C.B. Cebulski or Tom Brevoort, but it was a lot of writers make the mistakes. They come onto the title and they want to swing for the fences. That's why it's a bad idea to put somebody like who loves Ghost Rider on Ghost Rider. Don't put writers on comics they really, really love, which I already my head's spinning a little bit of what weird advice. But on top of that, it's like, you don't know when your run is going to get cut short. Okay, now I think, in fairness, I think they're talking about, the title doesn't take and it gets canceled, so don't set a bunch of stuff up in the first 10 issues hoping to pay it off by issue 40 and your comic doesn't last that long. Okay, that's fair advice. But it's not like we're getting comics right now where like there's tight, clear stories, like you're getting key things out in the first 2, 3, 6 issues. Instead, it feels like tons of setup. And I go back to Legion of Superheroes. What's going on with that title? Like I defy anyone to kind of explain. Now when I say that, I'm not talking about don't explain the plot to me. I understand the plot. But in terms of structure and what's going to fit into trade, and like when you're like, hey, did the first act leading to the second act leading to the third act, etc. Like, can you classify it that way anymore? Uh, Brian Michael Bendis said popularized the writing for trade format. But as I look at his comics, it doesn't really feel like he's doing that either. Take Superman. Where does it begin and end exactly? Where do these story arcs? We got, Red Mist is here, and then Red Cloud. Sorry, not Red Mist. That's Kick-Ass. But Red Cloud's over here, and then here's something with Leviathan for a couple issues that kind of awkwardly fits into Forever Evil, but then it's a flashback and we're doing something with Superman and could have killed him but didn't kill him, and it's really hard to kind of figure out like where's this story going. It feels like it's just kind of floating down the lazy river, and at some point the lifeguards are going to be like, okay, everybody out, grab your inner tubes out of the pond, and people come out of the water, and then the comic's over. It's like, well, that was unfulfilling. Is that what we have? And am I thinking a little bit too much about this? Probably so. But what do you think? Like, I was a big fan of the 2, 3, 4 part little stories that would come out, and that was great. I think that format was good for new readers, got people into it, made sense. And then we went to the 6 issue structure writing for trade format, and it became a little bit less accessible, I think. Granted, it sold some trade paperbacks, but I'm not entirely convinced that if you would have put out a trade paperback with, say, 2 storylines in it, 2, 3 part stories, it would have done just as well. I suspect it would have. I don't think the magic was in a 6 part story. But then today, Like, what the hell are we doing today? Like, does anybody have any? I don't know. Leave a comment below. Let me know. Do you love writing for trade? Do you love that format? Do you like the old 2, 3 part storylines? Did you like the 6? Do you love today's kind of? Well, I don't know what's going on, but stuff's happening. What do you think? Leave a comment below. Hey, like, subscribe if you haven't yet. Really appreciate it if you would. Follow me on social media. Send me an email at comicsperch@gmail.com. And thanks for listening.